Hello, Facebook Live folks. My vacation is coming to an end here a few days from now. What you see right here is the unedited manuscript. I still have a chapter to finish of a book that I'm writing on leadership. And I don't know what the title is exactly going to be, but it's about leadership lessons that I learned from my grandmother. My grandmother dropped out of high school in the 9th grade. She was blind. She lost one eye in a childhood accident and then lost her eyesight when I was about 4 years old. Her mother, her two aunts, and their husbands were all converted in Paulding, Ohio, in the Church of the Nazarene around 1918, at which my grandmother was just a little girl. She is one of the significant human influences in my life. She is a testament to the fact that people don't have to be famous to have left an imprint on you. And so I would say to you today, she's the wisest person I've known, and yet she didn't even make it out of high school. She was a devoted and devout Christian. But she had these little sayings that somehow she instilled within me growing up. And so the chapters start with a statement that she made. You may not agree with them. I'm not sure that I always agreed with them. But I was being mentored long before I ever was aware there was such a word. She never sat me down and said, I'm teaching you. And the school across the street, somebody's evidently having a horn problem. So you're getting to hear authentic noises. But one of the chapters is leaders sit in the front. She always sat in the second row, and I remember saying to her one Sunday morning after Sunday school, I would go take her to Sunday school, then I'd go back and pick her up. She was blind, and I was her guide dog. And I'd say, Grandma, why don't we sit in the back today? And she said to me, leaders always sit in the front. And I got to thinking, how is a kid like me and my blind grandma in leadership? She never held a leadership position in that church. But I used to state she was the only person besides the pastor that people stood in line to visit with. So leadership isn't particularly a title or where you went to school. She's the one who instilled with me this idea that you have to be prompt. She used to always say that early was on time. We were going to be ready ahead of time. Now I've added on to that. And if you've ever been on staff with me, you know this by heart. Early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable. I have an entire chapter about that. One of the things that she was so good at, it was encouraging people. Even though her own personal life story was somewhat of a lot of discouraging events. One thing that I remembered about the authenticity is if someone would call her and they would pour out their heart to her, and she would either pray with them right there on the phone or promise she'd pray, and if she promised, she did. The one thing that has stuck with me all of these years is that when she hung up talking to the person, unlike many folks I have met down through the years, whatever she said on the phone is what she said after the phone was hung up. She was not one way at church and one way at home. That's probably why I never had to join a legalism support group, because her faith was deep-seated, it was authentic, it was real. And the way she was in public was the way she is at private. I also say that same thing about my wife, which I think is the greatest thing you can say about anyone. The way they are in public is the way they are at home. Another thing I learned from my grandmother is if you love people, it's pretty hard for them not to love you back. Now, I've been able to prove that some people won't love you back regardless, but she was the most loving, kind person, and that people valued her. She even made a statement that I believe I heard the former General Superintendent Dr. Deal say one time, but I remember her saying this: you can't marry everybody you feel sorry for. As empathetic and sympathetic as she was, she also knew that you could only do so much. I learned from her you don't have to have a title to be a leader. As a matter of fact, I even tell pastors, if you have to keep reminding people that you're the leader, guess what? You're probably not the leader. She never had a title, never held a position, but was a respected person. She also had, in spite of her serious way that she took her faith from childhood all the way to her last days, She had one of the greatest senses of humor of anyone that I have ever known. She found the humor in anything, and she laughed mostly at herself. And laugh and laugh mostly at yourself. No one likes humor that puts other people down. Do self-deprecating. And I have discovered over the years, if you learn to laugh at yourself, you'll never run out of material. Another thing I learned from my grandmother was that people need a champion. She was my champion. There are certain things that I'll get into in that chapter of the book in which she was a champion for me when I didn't feel like I had very many of them. And it's probably one of the reasons that our relationship was so close from the youngest time of my life until she's been gone since 1984. But she was my champion, and she championed me and my situation, and more than likely I wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't be right here talking to you if it wasn't for her. One of the other chapters has been made a book out of, so if I could have only gotten to it sooner. She made the bed every morning. Right now is when you wash dishes. You don't wait to wash dishes tomorrow. You tidy things up now. If you have a job to do right now, do it. Don't put it off. So she taught me that if there's something to do, you do it right now. She was also, because of the oral tradition of her generation, they were tremendous storytellers. She was perhaps the best storyteller. I would have her tell stories about her childhood and people in their neighborhood from you, even though I knew it forward and backward. She was just a great story. And I wish at times she was still here where I could quiz her on some of those things, because I'm not sure that I paid close attention to it. But do you know you have a story, my friend? We all have a story. Tell your story. The reason I'm wanting to write this book is you don't have to be famous to make a difference. You don't have to have a lot of money to make a difference. You don't have to be well known. My grandmother rarely traveled and lived and died no more than 50 miles from where she was born. And a lot of the modern things, they all kind of passed her by. So I'm thinking of what the title will be. As a matter of fact, the next few episodes of my podcast, I keep my podcasts quite a bit ahead. I'm up in the 80s, and I think only the high 60s have been put online. But I'm going to tell a little bit of each chapter over the next several podcasts. I may even do one on Facebook Live. Hey, thanks. I just want you to know, why don't you be like my grandmother? Doesn't matter if what your handicap is. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter who will know you or not. You can make an eternal difference in the people in your life. Quit waiting to be something somewhere down the road. Be who God has intended you to be and who God has made you to be right where you are today. I want you to have some Monday afternoon encouragement. God needs you, and there are people in your life who need you. The Lord wants you to make a difference in someone's life, just like my grandmother made a difference in my life a long time ago, and it still reverberates in my soul to this very moment. God bless you. Have a great and blessed rest of your day.